How do you deal with a uh, a problem child? Maybe it's an infant. Well, not even an infant, a toddler. Let's say toddler. Infants have no choice, but a toddler screaming his head off, her head off, all the way up into maybe even preteens. Boy, oh boy, if you haven't got a handle on it early, it's going to be a tough road back. Well, we have Dr. John Braccio to help guide us through, and we get free advice every Tuesday about this time with our little segment, What's Up, Doc? Doc John Braccio, good morning, sir.
Well, good morning to you, Mike, and I'll tell you, a person or a parent's very fortunate who's not had a difficult child at one time or another, okay, during the time they're being raised. In my work with parents, trying to learn how to deal with a difficult child can be very difficult, okay? Now, my point is not to find fault with parenting techniques that have been used. No, the point is to try to find what's the best way for parents to be able to work with a difficult child in the here and now. And also, it's important to remember that really children don't misbehave simply because they desire to. No, there's a reason. It can be a parent is too strict or too lax. And there are many other reasons that the misbehavior can occur. The important thing is to learn why, okay, being so difficult. Now, if you get to the point that you really can't determine it, well, I think that can happen. I guess it gets to the point it's going to be what are you going to do? What are you going to do in order to really solve these problems? Okay, so first of all, you have to recognize you're a parent, and your job is to model good behavior. Okay, you can't allow you or your child to be rude or disrespectful. So you have to start with yourself. A good place to start. And then, regardless of what's happened in the past or to the present, you need to set up boundaries. What is going to be acceptable and unacceptable behavior? This is really critical. It's amazing how many parents don't do this. Then you have to keep control of your own emotions and not allow your child to create a sibling-like relationship. Now, this may sound funny, sibling-like relationship. What does that mean? Well, so many
Talking about with the parent?
Well, what happened, they start behaving like a sibling, like a brother or sister. And this can quickly devolve into constant arguing and disagreement. So you can't even tell who the parent is, okay? So it's important for parents not allow the children to have this occur. It happens a lot of the time. If you hear parents and children arguing, you don't even know who the child or the parent is, okay? So, and then you have another key thing is you want to seek out when your child is behaving appropriately and praise them at the time. You want to encourage and reinforce appropriate behavior. And too often the parent says nothing when the child's behaving because they don't want to have a conflict. They think, well, listen, Chucky or Mary is good. We won't say anything. Well, we want to be rewarding good behavior. We want to record it, with compliments and potentially with desired activities or things that they want. Okay, it's not just bribery. I mean, the point is you're trying to encourage good behavior. And remember that when children do behave, we do tend to do good things for them. So I think that's a key thing too. And in a home, Mike, you don't want to have 100 rules or make them up as you go along. You want to have a few rules in the house, and you want to enforce them with consequences the child's aware of. And so there are no surprises. And then another thing to try to do, which is really difficult until you really work at it for a while, it's family discussions, where there can be discussions on what's going to be acceptable behavior, what isn't appropriate behavior, and consequences that occur. And if you can do this, then it can certainly lead to a lot of the person taking responsibility for themselves. And I might add, when you're doing this, you want to include yourself, that if you're a yeller and a screamer, getting out and going nutsy cuckoo yourself, you want to make sure that you're not you've got to be part of this agreement that's going on. Then you've got to take into account your own temperament because you have your own temperament and personality. And it's very possible your temperament and personality is quite different than your child. This could certainly lead to bumping of heads, or you could even be so much alike that you're fighting and arguing all the time. So this is something where you have to be working on yourself. Because a lot of times when persons have difficult children, they will appropriately be upset about the child, but they don't realize that they're a big part of what's going on also. And then you also want to be recognizing there are going to be some high-risk situations where problems can occur. It could be going out, going somewhere, doing something, and you want to be prepared for whatever might really occur. And then another one, these are all things to try to do. Make sure you focus on the problem at the moment. Don't be dealing with other problems and other issues. Otherwise, you utterly get confused and you get getting into a bombing each direction where you just want to deal with one thing at a time. Another helpful thing can be to seek out a therapist for a child, that can be work with the person and try to help them learn how to do, function appropriately. And this could even include family counseling. Then a last point is for yourself. It might be helpful to seek out a therapist who's experienced in family dynamics who can help guide you to be a more effective parent for both you and your child. So these are a lot of points here, but they're really quite important, Mike, because if you're dealing with a difficult child, a lot of it does unfortunately relate to how you've been interacting with the child. And the point is, what can you do differently? Because basically, people do generally want a peaceful home where there's not a lot of fighting and a lot of arguing, and where people can just be at peace. Home is to be a harbor, that place where you can be not arguing and fighting all the time. But again, if you're in one of these homes with the yelling, the screaming, when you can't distinguish between the parent and the child, and they're like all brothers and sisters, it can be difficult. So you have to really make an determined effort, take a time out, and just start sorting out what's going on here. What can we do to change this? Start looking at acceptable boundaries for each person and for you, in the whole situation, and kind of approach it as a family and a life project. And if people do that, and I've seen a lot of people do that, can lead to a lot more of a harmonious life at home, and that is certainly the goal. We all want to have peace in our home, I would think. That's a major factor for all of us.
I think, boy, that sounds so complicated. It's simple yet complicated, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think consistency in your behavior as an adult, your mom and dad behavior, and consistency is big, because a child wants to know that they can rely on you for, you say it's going to be this. In other words, don't threaten me and then don't follow through on it.
That's right. You don't want a lot of rules, but the rules you have, you do enforce. You're absolutely right. People want consistency, and they want the parent. I mean, they're really looking to the parent to be consistent. Otherwise, they start going to other persons for leadership. They go to other people, and they don't really respect, and things break down in the home. So, if you want to be steady, reliable, and somebody that can be counted on, but will enforce certain rules, because you have to have boundaries. In life, you can't run a home, you can't run a business, you can't run a radio station, you can't run anything unless there is consistency and people working as a team. But in the home, it has to be the parent who takes the lead and really does everything they can to be helpful to the child. And there are difficult children. I don't want to make it sound like it's just the parent, but so much of how you deal with a difficult child, the success depends on how effective the parent is in dealing with the child and dealing with himself along the way. But you're right, consistency, predictability, and caring, genuine caring, and not using anger and explosiveness and becoming a sibling with the kid. Yeah, and you'd be amazed how many people do that. In my office, I've seen nicest of people, boy, they get mad, they're yelling, they're doing this, they're doing that. And I've got to say, hold on, let's take a time out here. Let's sort out what's wrong, what's going on here. And that's why sometimes the child and the adult having their own therapist or just working on things themselves, trying to sort out how to make things better, and then getting together and working. Because most people really do want to get along, unless things are so torture the relationship that it's too late to bring it back. But in most cases, things can be worked out. You just have to care. You have to show love. You have to show caring, and you have to be willing to look at yourself. Like, wait a minute, what can you do differently? And often that's one of the hardest things for the parent to say. Well, I guess I can't blame Chucky or Mary for my blowing up and getting angry. I'm gonna have to look at myself, what I can do differently in this system. So everyone works together. Everybody can be more effective, and you can have a very happy family life, which is what everybody really wants.
You're using Chucky as the name, and I think it's funny because I automatically go to that movie.
Chucky was pretty. That Chucky you couldn't deal with. How does that stop?
No. Dr. John Braccio, drjohnb.com on the web, and Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing. Every Tuesday we get a little free advice here. It's our little segment. What's up, Doc? Dr. John Braccio. Hey, have a great week, and we'll chat again next week.
Same to you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. 1320 WILS. Back in a minute.